General manager for Kivolowitz. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman and Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now, and anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry's been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry, and he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer, and that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out the textbook, but Larry has real-world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there, and I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
Hi. Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
All right, good morning and welcome. Let me just get out of this. We are going to be moving to StreamYard soon for the main show, so that should solve any audio challenges, but let's get into some book recommendations. I'm just going to present this. So I took a couple books. Jordan B. Peterson's Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. If you haven't read his first book, 12 Rules for Life, it's a great book, by the way. Lead It Like Lasso. This is one for Jeff, because I know he's a big Lasso fan. And Who Moved My Cheese? So a couple books. So go ahead with the disclaimer, Jeff.
Well, guys, I'm sorry, but that book's pretty cheesy. I'm really sorry.
I know, but it's great.
Some of the views and opinions shared today, which will be very interesting because today is the advisory panel show, are those of our guest speakers and guests who don't necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Ian Nethercott, Jeff Polo, or the AutoHub show.
And Larry did call us. He's going to be about 5 minutes late for some reason, but he'll be on shortly. So let's get into it. The month-end advisory show. And we were talking a little bit before the show about the moves that Honda have been making lately, both in Canada and the U.S. So maybe, Jeff, we can start with a little bit on that if you want. I'm just going to move this over. So go ahead whenever you're ready.
It's very funny because, we have a pre-show because, we just sort of get ourselves warmed up and get us in show mood and stuff. But there's so many things going on right now. And I was commenting that we had the Vancouver International Auto Show here on the weekend, and it's the first one in 3 years. And I think somebody forgot how to put on an auto show.
No.
And it was in a very large facility, roughly the size of the 1.5 of the NADA buildings in Vegas. And Stellantis wasn't there. Honda wasn't there, of course, because they were in financial trouble, maybe. Which we'll talk about in a second. It looked like a regional show. There was a lot of hot rods, a lot of vendors selling Hot Wheels. You had Ford was kind of there, GM was there. There's lots of lifted pickups, et cetera, which is really interesting because the Vancouver market is like being in LA or San Francisco or New York City, very, into EVs, etc. They had an EV section put on by a big dealer group, but they wouldn't let anybody sit in the cars because they didn't want to drain the batteries. So it's sort of like people are forgetting how to do things, which is an interesting lead into this Honda thing because I thought getting into the car business is about making money. I thought it's for making money from the manufacturer end, from the dealer end, and for providing customers with a good product and good service. So I'll put it out to you guys. Tell us, what do you think about what's happening with this move by our friends? Honda Canada has announced they're cutting margins.
So it's Honda USA?
Sorry?
Honda USA just announced last week. Honda Canada initially...
Honda USA has made the announcement they intend to. In Canada, the Canadian Auto Dealers Association is suing them. So, Doug, what's your thought?
And they didn't even ask the dealers. They just said, by the way, we're cutting profit 55% on each car.
I think it's a tough time right now to be an OEM. It's a tough time for OEM and dealer relations. I think OEMs, and I can't speak to Canada because, frankly, you guys do things up there that you guys do. But
hey, Doug, we're U.S. light, except at the moment, we really are U.S. light. Let's not.
Well, I would just say from my view, there's certainly a lot of pressures coming from a lot of different angles to the OEMs, and I'm sure their heads are on a swivel trying to figure out how they do everything, how they appease everything, how they're going to handle everything. I can't imagine what it's like when they're pressured to build EVs, then they start committing to EVs, then EVs don't pan out, and then it's back to hybrids, and then it's like, well, this manufacturer's going for it, but this one is not. And yet at the same time, you have their dealer partners who just enjoyed robust profits in 2022, and now their world's shrinking again. I just think I don't know what the solution is other than to say, if there was ever a time for OEMs and dealerships to come together and have a kumbaya moment, there's never been a better time than now because everybody needs it.
Yeah. Well, that's boy, oh boy, oh boy. Isn't that's really great. That was what a comment, Doug. I mean, if there was ever a time for a kumbaya moment, let's sit together, hold hands, and move forward. It should be now, but it's, you know, my view on that, and we're going to go to Mr. Hill here in a second because I can tell he's sitting there. He's holding his glasses in a way that says, "I have a comment." So, no, just kidding. But this is the time that somebody should be getting together to make a plan to move forward. And you know, the one comment I have, being a used car guy, I'm noticing that in Canada, a CRV, literally on Saturday, I looked this up, a 2024 CRV EXL, blah blah blah, is $48,226, give or take Canadian.
Mhm.
I saw a 2011 sell at the auction. No, it's not a 2011, excuse me. A 2021 sell at the auction on Saturday online for $32,000. Something's wrong here. The manufacturer says, we're going to cut your margins, but their used product is pulling goofy money. Just a comment. Russell, what do you think? What's going on here with that?
I don't have enough information to really, without opening my mouth and inserting my foot. You know,
Except
something.
I have to tell you this. You're a knowledgeable car guy. You don't need, honestly, we don't need the details. We don't need to discover that Honda shareholder things are down. Their R&D on EVs has gone up. Their investments in Geely as a partner has not paid off. The OEM in 2 countries has said we're cutting dealer margins.
Yeah.
Without asking the dealer, they just said, "Yeah, we're just going to do this."
Well, they're never going to ask the dealer.
Yeah, they're running scared. A lot of factors. I know. You know, I've done several workshops. You know, with Digital Dealer and NADA on EV and AI and the future of fixed operations and combinations thereof. I'm not an EV guy. I'm not opposed to having one, but it's like what I'm opposed to is cramming it down people's throats and not letting the market dictate. And they've learned a lesson from that. I hope. I don't know. The initiative seems to be coming back somewhat. The OEMs are it's really funny. I got to talk about in 2020. January 2023, Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, which is really a Green New Deal. But anyway, his Inflation Reduction Act, the infrastructure is poor. It's not set up. I don't know what it's like in Canada, but I can tell you that most people don't know there's 3 power grids in the United States. That's it. There's the East and West and Texas. Those are the only 3 power grids. The whole thing was set up for the population and the use of the 1960s and 70s. It's open to all kinds of attacks. It's vulnerable. It's obsolete, and you know, so part of that building infrastructure was to charging stations, and just to have a modicum of success. It was going to be like I don't know. It's not in front of me right now, but it's not. Anyway, the point is, here we are a little over a year later, and they haven't installed one. Not one. And the money they're saying, and the green stuff, green stuff here in some parts of the country is not working at all because what's really green is not really green. They got one, I forgot the nickel plant or left the United States and is closing down next year. They're going overseas for everything. China owns everything. It's just there's a lot of uncertainty. People are holding on to their vehicles longer. Depending on who you're talking to, the average age here is like 14 years. New car sales people are crying the blues. Dealers are freaking out and they overreact as they typically do, and they cancel everything for as much as they possibly can that they can get out of right away to maybe control expenses into some kind of profit. And they're just only 5% of the people here really know what the hell's going on. And it's just same thing with fixed operations. It's horrible. There's a huge paradigm shift. There's an initiative going on right now. I get it with transparency from the time a client, customer, or guest drives across the threshold and what happens to being transparent as far as video MPIs and then ultimately pricing, and being competitive with what the independents are doing. So there's so much going on. People are just like overwhelmed. Then you talk about AI, AI, AI. Everybody's talking about AI. And some people think, oh, it's everybody's job's going to get replaced, and I don't think that's going to happen. But I think a third of the jobs are going to get eliminated. Yeah, because of robotics and AI. I think the other third have nothing to worry about. And the last third, their job descriptions are going to change enormously with adapting robotics and artificial intelligence to help them do their job even better. But there's a lot of uncertainty. Then you got potential World War III, depending on who you're talking to. It's like the narratives on the news cycles. It's just these are all the things I hear about every single day. Don't know if I answered any specific question. Well, I probably created more controversy than. But anyway, that's.
Well, you touched on the next thing they're going to do. They're going to cut back on warranty rates. That's my opinion. They're going to say, okay, we're going to pay you X instead of Y for warranty per hour. They're going to cut back on dealership self-approvals for warranty work. They're going, they're literally, my opinion is there's something more afoot here. And
I agree. Now, and if they do that, my company is already exploding. It'll just explode even more.
But aren't there, I thought certain states had protected those warranty rates and basically put in a law that your warranty rate has to equal labor, it has to equal retail or what have you. I thought there were some state protections in place for that.
Yeah, but they could cut the hours, couldn't they? The amount of hours per warranty repair.
Yeah, that's how they could get around it. But regardless of what they're going to do, the fact is it's the larger issue. And it's the larger issue that we need to, that needs to be addressed, which is, hey, it's a tough time to be an OEM right now, because if you shot yourself in the foot a year ago and committed to a bunch of stuff that you can't commit to now, even with the government maybe backpedaling a little bit on demand, you still already committed a ton. And now what are you going to do? And you need your partner. I mean, it's affecting the whole, the whole ecosystem of both OEM and dealer. And what do you do?
Service interest is right here. Thinking it's someplace.
Hey, Doug, by the way, talking about protections, I'm sorry I'm getting in late, guys. I remember when they walked into dealers and said, you've done a fabulous job, but we're pulling the franchise. So as far as the protections, I keep my hand on my wallet and be careful, because once the OEMs decide to make a move, we can rattle our sabers, but we're not as protected as we think we are.
Yeah, I always think back to my grandfather's dealership, and they pulled the franchise, saying after 70 years or whatever it was, that we don't need as many locations. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I think you're right, but what happened in the past is not necessarily indicative of what's going to happen in the future. We need to be weary of the past, but the question is, again. So this is a pretty crazy little time that you bring up, and if Honda's the point of the spear with their move, is that merely that they've gone public with what every other OEM is experiencing? They just haven't made the big public moves yet. I mean, Stellantis, what did they say? They had everybody work from home and then laid off a whole bunch of white collar workers, right?
Well, they just announced today they're laying off more.
Right.
Yeah.
Tough times.
Yeah.
Tough times.
Well, it's interesting because when the pandemic came, they cut. Now it sounds like they did some hiring in between, but it's more of an indication of they're relying on, as Russell said here, AI. And by the way, May the 8th is the moment here. May the 13th is our AI show. And I think they're relying on the automation of things, and hence the get rid of the white collar people, and they're relying on something else to do it. But I'm less trusting, Doug. I'm less trusting that these people are worrying about their bottom line. I really am. My gut is there's something. I should be a conspiracy theorist. I'm not, but there's something much more nefarious going on here, and it's a grab of things. The OEMs were not successful in turning dealers into the agency model.
Right.
We know that failed.
So,
And now they're looking at, well, you know what's happening right now? We're seeing dealers have inventory and they're discounting some cars now. And they're not discounting your CRVs. They're not discounting your whatever the new Pilot or the Prologue or the, all that stuff. But they're discounting Civics and their Accords like they're going out of style. And Honda needs the Civic to keep running. The Civic and the CRV keep them running, just like the Corolla and the RAV4 keep Toyota running.
okay.
So they're saying, okay, so if we cut the markups on the Civics, the dealers aren't going to discount them. I've been through that before. I saw that. Here's how we keep dealers from discounting cars. We're going to, because that hurts the brand.
Yeah.
But I don't think that may necessarily be it. But there's something more going on here, because how do you tell somebody, by the way, we want you to put this color here in the front of your dealership. You have to buy this tile, these seats, these computers, this, and we're going to give you less money too. Something else is up.
So even though you say you're not a conspiracy theorist, let's say if you were, what do you think is brewing behind the scenes or might come to fruition?
Well, there's already talk between the different OEMs merging to do electric cars. I think you're going to see a merger of some of these OEMs who say, "Hey, maybe we can't survive as one brand anymore." I mean, I know MITS is probably in play, but when you look at collaborative arrangements to pick two companies in vastly different areas, so General Motors and Honda, for example, not to say that there's a merger happening, but at some point you're going to see some mergers happen because maybe they're not financially strong enough to make it work. I mean, the first volley is obviously cut margins so we have more revenue and cut staff to try and be leaner, but eventually you're going to see some mergers. And that's what I think. But what do you think, Peter?
Mitsubishi. I mean, Mitsubishi is just going to get swallowed up by Nissan.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Nissan because obviously Nissan and Renault, but when you look at Stellantis, there's a big group of car companies and they're cutting like no one's business. So what does that mean for smaller companies like, for example, MITS or Mazda, right?
Here's my recommendation for Nissan. Maybe they could learn to build the transmission first before they continue to. Because I gotta tell you something. I avoid Nissans like the plague. You can't even fix a Nissan transmission anymore. You just go buy a new one or get a different car, because those CVTs, man. They're an insult to the term CVT. That's how bad they are. Moving right along. To answer Russell, what I think is afoot is still this whole thing that was with that agency model. One of my favorite lines is, "Do you know who I am?" syndrome. And do you know who we are? We are Honda, Toyota, Stellantis, where they came up with that stupid name. We are Ford, we are GM, we will do this. And I think they're also scared because really there's 3 Chinese manufacturers that are bigger than any of all these guys. They just don't know. We just don't know how big they really are. And that's this whole, how are we going to compete against the manufacturers that build cars by paying people $9 a day instead of $90 an hour. And I think, I'm not going to say conspiracy theory, but this is the next volley in revising the dealer model. That's what I think.
So wait a minute. So carry it further. So the next volley in revising the dealer model is, I'm going to cut your profits so that what? So that most dealers then say, well, this isn't worth it anymore. You can have your franchise back, and then that ushers in the agency model. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, no. Here's
the theory.
Okay. Here's the way it is right now. We're sitting at roughly 55% of dealerships are part of groups of size.
Okay.
Am I wrong? Maybe even more. Maybe I've been sleeping the last few weeks, which I have.
That's a good number.
Let's use that.
Yeah, let's use that. So when a group buys a dealer, and right now you'll get a small dealer in a larger market. Their net over the pandemic has probably been $3 to $5 million. They're now looking at about a 1.6 million net for 2024 because things have gone wrong. They're paying for inventory, etc. And that 1.6 million for a single point dealer has got to go to pay for the golf club, pay for the kids' school, pay for. And they're a decent human being. They like their staff. Okay. In comes AutoCorp. Isn't that right out of RoboCop or something? But
AutoCorp.
In comes AutoCorp, and they say, "Hey, listen, we are going to buy your store based on the numbers for the last 5 years. So we're going to give you." And there was a post actually just this week somewhere on LinkedIn. We're going to give you $17 million for your store. What do you think? They go, 17 million. So I can invest 10 million of that in a thing and save some tax and do this. I can give my kid this, I can do that, and I can get a really cool place in Costa Rica. So AutoCorp with 300 dealerships, 200 dealerships is really okay with with their economy of scale, they can turn that 1.5 net to 2.5. And they're happy with that. Because if you've got 300 dealerships netting you an average of $5 billion a year, that's pretty good for your shareholders. So they're going to go up to 75%. If they're in cahoots with the manufacturers, not saying they're in cahoots, this is a giant plan, but now the manufacturers can say, okay, AutoCorp, for your Honda stores, we want to do this. And they go, okay, what's in it for us? And they do the change. So that we get to the point that you are 85% is in 5 to 10 dealer groups in the US, and in Canada, 3. So it's really getting into that almost an agency model.
So you're saying that the fear is the ultimate result is the massive consolidation whereby there's just minimal, there's basically an oligopoly of like 5 major groups.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I see that, but to me that's decades away.
Yeah. I don't think so. If you look at NADA, how many M&A stores were at the previous NADA? I remember seeing 3. This one, I bet you I saw 10. Because M&A is a big business. And the guy in Canada that's the big one has expanded the States and tripled his business in probably 18 months, because of course it's a bigger thing. But, I go back to the auto show here, and I take a look, and there's not 2/3 of the OEMs of a display there, but there was one big Canadian dealer group that had 5 or 6 different booths there, showing off their exotics, showing off their EVs, which, by the way, Peter, you'll enjoy this one. They would not let anybody look inside because it might drain the battery, but they had all their luxury EVs. They had their performance division, and I don't know. Something smells fishy to me and it ain't fish to.
Peter, you're muted.
Let me weigh in on this one, guys. They've been talking about OEM consolidation for the last 20 years. And they said before the turn of the century, it will be down to 6 manufacturers. 2 European, 2 Japanese, and 2 American. And that's what they predicted in 1990. It never happened. And believe me, there was American OEMs that were trying to make that happen. Ford with Jack Nasser was trying to make it happen. He bought everything, and he was almost there with PAG Group, but it failed. And this constant turning of manufacturers buying and selling. Right now, there's only truly in North America, there's only, I would say, 13 manufacturer groups that are actually selling cars. And because you have the PSA, you got you got Stellantis, you got the Volkswagen Group, you got the GM, Ford, Chrysler, you got Toyota, you got Honda, and that's basically your groups. Now, having said that, if we look at consolidation in dealerships, absolutely, consolidation of dealerships is happening because the dealerships in the COVID heyday, they made so much money that people are in acquisition mode right now because the people that are looking at their dealerships right now, and they've gone from having a 6% net margin to a 2% net margin. They think the sky is falling. And at that point, they're saying, I can get out for X. Yeah, I'm gone. And that's why you see all these M&As. They're everywhere. I talk to at least one M&A group a week now. It's insane on lease buybacks, meaning that they're looking to buy the properties and lease the properties back to the dealers. There's amazing real estate deals going on all over the place because people want to jump on the real estate game. Now, as part of the consolidation of or compression of margins, Honda, in my opinion, and what they've done is going to be challenged not only by doing so by their dealer body, but it's in my impression, it's going to hurt them on their customer body as well. So it's going to be a serious play because now with the dealerships not being able to service the people correctly at the margins that are retained, I just don't see them competing at the level that they were. So
why the customer body though? Why the customer body? I'm just curious.
Customer body because if a dealership doesn't make enough money, the dealership cannot look after its customers. And Doug and I talk about this all the time. It's the dealership experience. If you take a salesperson who is making, and I'm just going to throw out a number of, say, $450 an average Honda, and they have to sell 20 Hondas a month to make a living, and to survive in metropolitan Toronto, any of the top 25 cities in North America. They have to sell 20 cars a month at $450 commission to survive. Now, you turn around and you cut that by 43% is what Honda said that they were going to cut.
55%.
55%. So even if you cut it by 55%, now the salesman's going to make $225. He's going to have to sell 40 cars to make that. Do you think he's going to want to work at a Honda dealership? Not a chance. Not a chance. And guess what? The customer experience is going to go down the tubes. And when the customer experience goes down the tubes, the customers are going to revolt and they're going to go to somewhere else. And they're going to go. And where are they going to go? The only place that Honda dealers or customers are going to go are to Toyota because they want that reliability. So Toyota's going to it's just sitting back in the bank of Toyota is going, we don't have to do anything. We have a year and a half wait for RAV4s. We have a year and a half wait for this. We have a year wait for this. We'll accept them all in and we'll just explain to them that this is the timing. And
but Peter, I don't know if you heard what I said. One of this thing is because while the Honda dealers are holding the lines on CRVs because they got to wait, they're holding the lines on. I don't know about pilots because they're hit and miss as far as how they sell. But that's okay. They're discounting pilots, let's say, but they got lots of money to do it. But passports, they're holding the line. They're holding the line on whatever. But the Civics and the Accords, they need that Civic moving. They need those numbers to move. They're discounting them. Or Accords have never, ever, ever been a profit car for a Honda dealer. Well, not ever. 25 years. My days in Honda, if I got an Accord buyer, man, my hands were around his leg. There's no way he was going to leave, especially a hybrid. But
he can't compete with a Camry.
Yeah, exactly. But even Camrys, you know what? Camrys are they're not holding the line on Camrys either. They discount it. They only sell to Uber drivers. Camry hybrids. Regular Camrys, they're not selling. So
free.
They're free. I once had one of my Toyota meetings. I had a GM of a Toyota store call them couches on wheels. But the fact is, Toyota is no longer the cooperative, ethical operator they used to be either. Now they're allowing. I made a post last week when I read about this. It's time for Honda dealers to have hot dog fees, and you're going to start seeing that. Toyota already went down that path.
Mm-hmm.
John, sorry, Peter.
That's what's happening when you get margin compression. The dealers have to look to other means to pay their staff and to make their dealerships profitable. And I was just at a Mitsubishi dealership, and the hot dog fees were insane.
Yeah, but they gotta sell Mitsubishis. Nobody wants those cars, dude.
It's like, I'm going, how can you justify this?
Mitsubishi. Nobody wants it.
That's how we have to make our money. And I'm, okay, sell yours. And it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Agreed.
Go for volume.
Yeah, Mitsubishi? Yeah, go for subprime.
Yeah.
John, what do you think? You've been whisper quiet.
Go for John.
I don't know, guys. I mean, this is this is really not my expertise. This particular topic,
Which is even better because you're a knowledgeable guy and you have an opinion. If you're an expert, honestly, we can talk about experts all we want. Okay, what's our problem? We have a problem with crime everywhere. We got experts telling us what to do. We got problems with housing people. We got experts telling us what to do. We got problems with the economy. We got experts telling us what to do. Yeah, don't forget the border.
Yeah.
The border. Well, we got a problem with the border because that border's fluid, baby. We got experts telling us what to do. The fact is, we need common sense people, and your common sense. Tell us. Go for it, John.
Well, my kind of field of reference is always on the customer experience side of things and how the dealerships treat their customers, right? Not so much about how the OEMs and the dealerships are interacting in terms of all the financials. I mean, I'll leave that to you guys to sort of provide the insight into. But as far as the customer experience goes, if what I'm understanding correctly, it's going to go down the tubes, right? I mean, let's just say with Honda. Right? If it's true that the sales reps aren't going to be able to make a living anymore, that means they're going over to start selling Kias, or they're going to start selling Fords or whatever. I mean, they can move. They can move from one branch to another.
Yeah.
What does that mean for the people they've sold cars to? Now they're orphans, right? Now these orphans aren't going to be getting the same kind of follow up and the same sort of contact touch points as they would have previously. So there's going to be more and more people that are going to just be kind of like left hanging. And the people that are going to show up at the Honda dealerships to actually take those jobs that are being abandoned, how good are those sales reps going to be, right? Like, I mean, who's going to show up to do that job? There are people that are just absolute bottom of the barrel that, I mean, I can't even imagine what the experience is going to be like going into a Honda dealership and dealing with this new crop of sales reps that.
Yeah, great news. You're going to make a flat on every car you sell.
Yeah. All right. I told you, Jeff. My insight was going to be limited, but it's.
Well, you got to think about it this way, John. If I was used to making, let's just say, $200 to $300 a car selling Hondas. Now, obviously, not on Civic and not on a Honda Fit, to pick two random entry level cars. Let's just say on those cars I was making $150 on average per car because I'm selling them at break even or a loss. Now that's going to be true on every car I sell. So how driven am I going to be as a salesman to sell new cars? I'm going to sell as many used cars as I can if I stay at all because I can go sell Toyota and make double. Like I'm just going to stop.
Here, gentlemen, what we have here, and we're certainly focusing on the Honda dealer because that was the question.
Yeah.
But I think it's reflective of the industry as a whole. What we have here is the opportunity to develop leadership.
Yep.
Okay? Because what you're saying is these guys are going to all fly the coop. They're getting out of here. Oh, my God, it's horrible. Well, they're going to go from one crappy situation to another one that pays well, but the management still sucks. And what has to be done here is the smart dealers either have or will have a culture that says, hey, I get what you're going through. I'm going through it too. let's figure out a solution together, because I sure as hell don't want to lose you, but I fully understand what you're going through. Let's figure out what we can do, because it's going to be tough for everybody.
So
Just assuming the worst, why can't we assume that there's going to be some that won't be that way? They'll actually do the right thing. I mean, again, if you've never been to Boulder, Colorado, you don't know how utopia spews from ourselves, but I can spew it all day, and I'm utopian. I tend to think there's an opportunity here.
So
Well, Larry, maybe Larry wants to chime in. Larry, I know you're in a car, but you want to chime in?
Larry's upside down.
Go ahead.
So
Oh, wait.
trades.
Wait, I think we got Larry's going to chime in. Larry, what do you say?
Yes,
Oh, well, go ahead, Peter. I don't know what happened to him.
If they were really inclined to leadership, then during the times when everybody was making buckets of money, and I mean buckets, they would have sat down and said, guys, everybody's doing great. Let's act like we're going broke, and let me show you how to be better and do better. Russell Hill, my buddy, always loves to say, we could have had the same discussion in 1953, and it would have been the same thing. Listen, I've been on the road. You guys will see my posts since January 1st. I'm home. What am I doing? I'm running around with Harry Wilner. Say hi, Harry. Hey, everybody.
Hey!
We're hitting dealers cold. Walking in cold. Hey, here's who we are. Like, if somebody's here, I'm going to tell them a joke. The guys, everybody on this damn show wants to make a living and wants to be better. And the people that want to do that will love it, because nature abhors a vacuum, and every crisis is a big opening for anybody that thinks like an entrepreneur. So it's not the demise of the industry. There's nobody on this show that's 18. We've all seen the oil crisis, okay? We've all seen the housing meltdown. We'll be fine. But the guys that aren't, right? I always love to quote Russell, Jerry Butler had a great song that was a hit in America called Only the Strong Survive. The guys that retrench and understand are going to be fine. The guys that won't will go by the wayside. And sadly, I guess I'm jumping from Jerry Butler to Darwin, right? Survival of the fittest. There you go, Russell. I got in Darwin and Jerry Butler. This ADHD is working out for me pretty good.
all right. So I'm going to jump in on this for 1 second, and I'll get Jeff's head nodding up and down when I said like a bobblehead. So when we started this about a year and a half ago, we talked about the pandemic being the entry to the Great Reset, and it's going to reset the car business. And we hope that it would reset the car business, and we looked at all the different opportunities from the wealth of income to get us to the point where dealers would invest back into the industry. Well, last week we talked about on my Clubhouse call was different pay plans. Well, if you are in a Honda dealership, why not take this opportunity to switch people out of a performance-based, commission-only sales plan to a salary-based pay plan with a performance-based on customer satisfaction, and give them the opportunity to be held accountable for how many customers they have to deal with. And that will give them the opportunity to have a secure income and retrain that group to be more beneficial to looking after his customers.
I want to speak as a dealer. I put on a dealer hat here. Okay. Can you tell a dealer, think of a dealer, whoever's got the noise going on in the background.
I think it's Larry. It's all good.
There we go. There we go. So think of this. So you picture a dealer. We all know dealers, okay? Dealer principals, etc. So the manufacturer says we're cutting your income. And how many of these people do you think are going to go and say, okay, I'm going to switch my salespeople to a salary plan? I'm sorry, but it looks like Doug disappeared. Oh, no, there he is. No. So how many of these people are going to say, okay, now's an opportunity to pay a salary? So now my variable expense becomes a fixed expense, and I'm making less money, and therefore, and I'm talking this kind of thinking, remember?
Yeah.
Right.
Therefore, how many of them are going to say, I'm going to increase my fixed expenses?
No, they're going to look at cut expenses, but they're definitely going to look at a pay plan. The first
Oh,
thing
they sure are, but are they going to look at a salary?
They might. They might when they do an overall. It depends. Again, it depends on the openness of the dealership. If he looks at his salary and says, "Okay, I can sell my expenses now. I can throw a little extra pack on the cars, and I'll throw an extra $100 on the cars, and okay, they're still salaried. Oh, I can recoup some of this stuff. They'll get it back. I'll pack my F&I products an extra $100. That'll get me some of my money back. I don't necessarily think that they won't. I do think that, again, it depends on the dealer, and frankly, it depends on the GM, because half the dealer principals aren't even in the store. They're probably hardly even aware of the fact that their boat check just went down a couple thousand. But the GMs are the ones that are going to go, oh shit, what do we do? Maybe they're the ones that will sit there and say, okay, I'm open to other ideas. What do you got?
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually of the same opinion you are as far as that process. I'm just knowing who I'm dealing with. Sorry, Russell.
Peter was going to chime in.
Oh, was it Peter?
Yeah. So way I look at it is we are right now, and as I said, the Great Reset. We're a bunch of explorers in this industry right now.
Dora?
We're Dora the Explorer. Yeah, we can be Doras. We're out there trying to figure out what is actually going to be the combination. So we're just sitting there with the old Stanley lock, just turning around and trying to figure out what the combination is, and to make our dealership profitable now. But here's the one thing that I've been saying, and April Simmons backs me up on this. In 2019, all the dealerships were screaming happiness. They were all happy. They were having the best time of their lives. Everything was great. 2020 comes along, it changes, but they still remain at the same profitability level. 2021, 2022, they're on a rocket ship to the moon. 2023, it starts dropping. Mm-hmm. And they lose 40% of the profitability that they had. Well, they were at 10% net, and they're now down to 6. Now they're dropping from 6, and they're going to drop down to probably 4.5 on average. And they're saying the sky is falling. Well, back in 2019, at the same volume levels that they will hit in 2024, they were at 2% on average. So where is the sky falling? They'll be up 30% overall on average across the board. They're more profitable than they ever have been, even with all the challenges with floor plan and everything else. They're still more profitable, but they're screaming that the sky's falling. This is the time to invest. This is the time to look at different opportunities and different challenges that are being brought forth to this industry, and bring out the technologies that are going to help you with the customers. Russell's technology, Doug's technology, Jeff Shearer's technology, BDC technologies, all these technologies that are out there and available to you, get investing in them, because there's no time like the present that's going to help you. And this is the challenge.
Okay, I'm gonna challenge that analogy and use sports as an analogy. Okay, and Russell, are you in Texas? I don't know where the hell you're big. Where are you guys? All right, so Russell, let's assume the Dallas Cowboys have been a 10-win team for years. And they get to the first round of the playoffs, but they always get blown up. But they're 10 wins. But then for a couple of years, they go to 12, 13 wins. They get to the second round, get blown out. Hey, great success. But now, a couple years later, come back, and now you're back to 10 wins. Hey, you were happy with 10 wins before. You should be happy with 10 wins now, but you're not. You want the 13 wins again. That's the way dealers are right now, Peter. You can't sit there. I don't think it's fair to say 2%. You were happy with 2% before. You should be happy with 2% now. Screw that. They want the 4% again, and that's the new norm. Okay, that's the new norm of what they're settling for. So I don't know.
Is that reality?
To say that.
Is that reality?
It was for them, and now that's their new goal. Their new goal is,
Yeah,
okay,
well-
how can I get to that, or how can I approach that? I don't think you sit there and just settle for 2% and say, well, that's the way it was, that's the way it should always be.
No,
You should just
what-
buy.
But what I'm saying is, if you take the historic 10 years previous to 2020, the average was 2%. It never changed. The only thing that changed was we took everything away from the car buyer and that forced them to readjust pricing. There was no cars, so they readjusted pricing. It's going to happen with used cars coming up because there's going to be no 2, 3, and 4-year-old cars coming up in the next 6 to 18 months. They're all going to be gone because they priced the cars too far out of the market so no one can trade them in. So those cars are eliminated. It's going to happen in used cars. We know it's coming. I've talked to Paul Machine from Black Book, and he's shown the data. The data shows it, and we're going to have a giant challenge coming up. So that's going to push it back to new cars again. And when new cars, with interest rates and everything else that's happening, there's going to be the volume's going to go up, but then the race to the bottom comes in because everyone has inventory and wants to get off their floor plan.
I have to tell you this though, Peter, my opinion. You turn to the people that have always dealt with a poor OEM relationship. And that's your Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram people will always survive through the Armageddon. Because the on-the-ground people are used to being it. I've always said, you want to hire a great salesperson for a Honda store? Get somebody with CJDR experience. Because they've always been the poor kid on the block.
Oh, absolutely. It's the kick in the teeth. They always had excess inventory. They always had horrific reliability, high depreciation, and
Who are you
From the
talking about?
OEM.
Who are you talking about?
CJDR.
they are.
I don't know about
Stellantis.
that.
Stellantis.
I just don't know about all that. Not here.
No, but they've always had the crummy OEM. And I know I spent 20 years with Chrysler, man, and I gotta tell you something. Every time we got the rep come in, there was 3.5 hours of table banging and screaming and hollering, you know?
That hasn't changed.
And honestly, it doesn't matter what brand manufacturer you're dealing with because every manufacturer is going to do the same thing because they want more cars out. And Mercedes was just as bad.
No. Mercedes was not bad. Just ask them. They're wonderful. It's dealing with a German manufacturer. Rule number 1, we are right. Rule number 2, when we are wrong, refer to rule number 1. Guys, we're running out of time here. This was a very lively conversation. I love it. You know something? I love when we get the panel together and just go with whatever. It's always outstanding fun. Parting comments, and who's staring me in the face right now is Russell.
So I just, I'm in a lot of different rooms with Peter, and I thoroughly enjoy everything he shares and his perspective. But there's a lot of naysayers out there who don't. And he's a diehard optimist with what needs to happen in the industry. But the bottom line is only 5% of those people are going to meet those needs. They're going to do whatever it takes to shift the boundaries, the goals, etc. Which is why we all have jobs. The 95% are going to keep doing the same thing they've always done, reactionary instead of being proactive. And I don't. You would think that would have changed, and there's some ray of hope that it would. The COVID reset, but now we're shifting right back into the old way of doing business, and they're reactionary. But there's some tremendous talking points, and I do believe there is a shift, but it's going to take a longer than I'm going to be in the business before that stuff starts to change. But people are, just to have a modicum of success, people are starting to really listen and pivot to leadership and from the top down instead of the bottom up.
And I agree with you there, Russell. 5 years ago, if you had this conversation, it would be completely on deaf ears. Now you have people listening to what you're saying. They might not agree with it. they might want to go back to, hey, this is the way we've always done it, and that's why I got my name on this building. But at least they're listening now, and that is a massive, massive improvement.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. I would say this, I talked to a GM recently who was very progressive, and the owner came in and said times are tough. We're going back to the 90s. I mean, he literally didn't want to even do that. But that being said, I think that's an anomaly. My whole point of today was basically to stir it up. It was basically to say, well, I'm going to take the contrarian view just to stir it up because I think we need to blow the blinders off and look at every side of it. And frankly, I do think the industry is changing, and I'm in the middle of it. And I'm experiencing it in my end, so I know it's changing.
You're a disruptor, buddy.
That's why my clubhouse room is innovators and disruptors. It's stir
Crap disturbers. Change it to crap disturbers.
and get the
Shit disturbers. What are you talking about?
So we can have some intelligence.
And that's why Larry's not in it.
Larry's always traveling on Thursday.
I hadn't trusted to see if he was listening. Larry, final comments. You're a mutant driving. I don't want to get into an accident.
The passenger.
He's trying.
Hey, just good to see everybody, and I'm sure between the brain power on this show minus me, we'll figure out some good solutions for anybody willing to listen. Everybody stay healthy.
Hey, Harry. John, comments? Nope.
Oh, guys,
So,
awesome to be here.
So I'm going to do this. I just Googled something, and this goes right up to, actually, Russell brought this up a little bit earlier. I think it's time they hire a consultant, and Larry disappeared for this, so it's great. And I Googled it. I think they need a consultant, all the dealers and the OEMs, to get Marvin V. Fry in the room with them. Probably dead. Marvin composed the song Kumbaya. There we go. There we go. Thank you guys. Next week, I got to tell you something about next week. Ian, as you know, has got probably about 67,000 connections on LinkedIn alone. And he is connected with some very, very deep, knowledgeable people. We got some crap we got to throw in you next week, man. Holy cow, it's going to be him and official guests like OMG. There's some stuff happening that he told me today, and I just do this. Stay tuned for next week.
All right.
Guys.
Have a great day. Have a great week.
Hey, rock on, dudes. Rock on.